Have you ever noticed how certain moments in your life feel too perfect to be random, like meeting the right person at the exact wrong time, or hearing a message that feels like it was made specifically for you, and then you stop and wonder if it's really just coincidence, or if there's something deeper happening beneath the surface that most people simply ignore? Because here's the truth most people overlook without even realizing it. Your brain is constantly shaping what you call reality, and those coincidences you keep experiencing might not be accidents at all, but rather the result of invisible processes working silently in the background, influencing what you see, what you feel, and what you decide to act on. Think about this carefully for a moment. Out of billions of people, infinite choices, and endless variables that exist in the world every single second, why do certain events align in a way that changes everything for you? Why that conversation? Why that opportunity? And why that exact moment instead of any other? Now, this is where things start to get interesting, because science actually has a name for part of this phenomenon, and it's called the reticular activating system, which is quietly controlling what you notice and what you completely miss, even though you feel like you're fully aware of everything around you. Your brain receives millions of pieces of information every second, including sounds, images, sensations, and thoughts, but you only become aware of a tiny fraction of it all. And the reason for that is because your brain filters everything based on what it believes is important. And that filter is not random in any sense of the word, because it is programmed by your beliefs, your focus, and your expectations, meaning that what you repeatedly think about and what you emotionally attach yourself to will directly influence what shows up in your awareness. Let me ask you something that might sound familiar. Have you ever learned a new word and suddenly started seeing it everywhere, or thought about buying a specific car and then began noticing that exact model on every street as if it had suddenly multiplied overnight? That is not coincidence in the way most people assume, because it is your brain showing you what it has decided is important, highlighting patterns that were already there, but invisible to you until your attention shifted toward them. Now imagine this same mechanism operating on a much deeper level, influencing not just the small things you notice, but also the opportunities you recognize, the people you connect with, and the events that seem random but end up changing your life in significant ways. Because that is exactly what is happening whether you are aware of it or not, as your mind is constantly scanning reality for patterns that match what you already believe to be true, reinforcing your perspective in ways that feel natural but are actually highly selective. And here's the dangerous part that most people never stop to question. If you believe that life is unfair, you will naturally notice every situation that proves it, and if you believe that opportunities are rare, you will miss the ones that are right in front of you without even realizing it. But if you begin to believe that something meaningful is always unfolding around you, your brain starts highlighting moments that align with that belief, and suddenly life begins to feel like it is guiding you in ways that previously seemed impossible. But it goes even deeper than that, because there is another concept in psychology called confirmation bias, and it explains why your brain does not just filter reality, but actively reinforces what you already think is true, strengthening those beliefs over time. So when something happens that fits your expectations, your brain immediately validates it by saying that this is proof you were right all along, and when something does not fit, it quietly ignores it or minimizes its importance so it does not disrupt your internal narrative. Now think about the implications of that for a moment. What if the coincidences in your life are actually the result of your mind connecting dots that were always there, but remained invisible until you were ready to see them based on your beliefs and focus? Let me tell you a quick story that illustrates this idea in a powerful way. There was a man who felt completely stuck in life with no direction and no sense of purpose, where every day felt the same and nothing seemed to change no matter what he did. One day he randomly picked up a book that someone had left behind at a cafe, and he almost did not open it because it seemed insignificant, but something made him curious enough to take a look inside. Inside that book there was just one idea, a single concept that completely shifted how he saw himself and his potential, and that shift led him to take a small action that he would not have taken before. That action led him to meet someone new, and that person introduced him to an opportunity he had never considered, and within a year his entire life looked completely different from what it had been before. Now ask yourself honestly, was that just luck, or was it a chain reaction that started the moment his mind became open to something new, allowing him to notice and act on opportunities he would have ignored in the past? Because what most people do not realize is that life-changing moments rarely look important at the time they happen, as they often feel small, insignificant, and almost accidental, even though they carry massive consequences. And the only reason some people experience more of these moments is because they are paying attention differently, not because they are smarter or luckier, but because they are tuned in to patterns that others overlook. And this is where neuroscience begins to connect with something that feels almost philosophical, because your brain is not just reacting to reality but actively co-creating it through the patterns it reinforces and the meanings it assigns to events. Every thought you repeat strengthens certain neural pathways, and every belief you hold acts like a lens through which you interpret the world. And over time, that lens becomes your reality, whether you are aware of it or not. So when something that feels like a coincidence happens, it is often the result of thousands of tiny mental patterns aligning in a specific way, patterns that you have been reinforcing without even realizing it through your daily thoughts and actions. Now here is the part that most people do not want to hear. You are not as in control as you think you are, but at the same time you have far more influence than you realize over the direction your life takes. Because while you cannot control every event that happens around you, you can influence what you notice, how you interpret it, and what you decide to do next, and that combination changes everything over time. Let's break this down in a simple but powerful way. The first step is awareness, which means you need to start questioning your automatic interpretations instead of accepting them as absolute truth. When something unexpected happens, instead of dismissing it immediately, you can ask yourself what it could mean in a strategic way, because meaning drives action and action creates outcomes that shape your life. The second step is intentional focus, where you begin to pay attention to what you are consistently thinking about, what you are expecting from life, and what you are emotionally invested in on a daily basis. Because your brain will always prioritize anything that carries emotional weight, meaning that if you constantly focus on problems, your brain becomes highly efficient at finding them everywhere you look. But if you start focusing on possibilities, your brain begins scanning for opportunities instead, even though the world around you has not changed, because your filter has shifted in a powerful way. The third step is action, and this is where most people fail because they notice something interesting but do nothing about it, or they feel a spark of curiosity and choose to ignore it. And that is where potential disappears, because those coincidences only matter if you respond to them, and your response is what determines whether that moment leads to something bigger or simply fades away. Think about how many times you have had a feeling, an idea, or a moment that you dismissed without giving it a real chance. And what if that was the beginning of something that could have changed everything? What if the only difference between your current life and a completely different reality is one decision that you did not make at the right time, simply because you did not recognize its importance? Now, here is something even more fascinating. There is a concept in probability theory called the law of large numbers, which means that with enough time and enough events, unlikely things become inevitable. In other words, given enough interactions, chances, and experiences, coincidences are bound to happen, but most people never reach that point because they limit their exposure to new situations. They stay in the same environments, talk to the same people, and follow the same routines every day. And then they wonder why nothing unexpected or exciting ever happens in their lives. But the people who experience more life-changing coincidences actively increase their surface area for luck by trying new things, meeting new people, and exploring unfamiliar paths that expand their possibilities. And suddenly their lives become filled with unexpected opportunities, not because they are naturally lucky, but because they have created the conditions for coincidence to occur more frequently. Now, when you combine this with everything we have discussed so far, you begin to see a clear pattern where your focus determines what you notice, your beliefs shape how you interpret it, and your actions decide what happens next. That is the formula, and once you understand it, you start seeing your life from a completely different perspective, where you are no longer waiting for something to happen, but actively participating in the process. Because the truth is that, while some coincidences are random, the ones that change your life are often the result of patterns you have been building over a long period of time, whether consciously or unconsciously. So the real question is not why this is happening to you, but what patterns you are creating that lead to these moments, and more importantly, what you can change starting today to influence future outcomes. Because the moment you shift your awareness, everything begins to shift with it as you start noticing things you ignored before and connecting ideas that once seemed unrelated. You begin to see possibilities where others see obstacles, and suddenly life feels different, not necessarily easier, but more aligned, more intentional, and more meaningful in ways that are hard to ignore. And this is where everything becomes powerful, Because once you realize that coincidences are not just external events but reflections of your internal state, you gain a new level of control over your perception and direction. Not control over everything that happens, but control over what matters most, which is how you interpret reality, the choices you make, and the path you decide to follow moving forward. So the next time something unexpected happens, instead of brushing it off, take a moment to pause and look closer, asking yourself whether it is truly random or an opportunity you would have missed before. Because that single question can change how you respond, and your response has the power to change everything that follows in ways you cannot fully predict in the moment. Now imagine living like this every single day, with awareness, curiosity, openness, and the willingness to take action when something feels significant, even if it seems small at first. That is how people transform their lives, not through one massive event, but through a series of moments that most people would simply call coincidence without ever questioning them. But those who understand this process know that it is actually a combination of awareness, focus, and action working together to create outcomes that seem extraordinary from the outside. And once you see it clearly, you cannot unsee it, because it changes how you interpret everything that happens in your life from that point forward. So here is your challenge. Starting today, pay attention to the small things, the unexpected conversations, the random ideas, and the subtle opportunities that appear in your daily life. And instead of ignoring them, choose to engage with them, because one of those moments might be the beginning of something that changes your entire life in ways you cannot yet imagine. And when it happens, it will feel like coincidence, but now you will understand the truth behind it.